Hey everyone, I'm Brentan. It's nice to virtually be with you today. Today we're going to focus on a lower body recovery session for all of the tissues of the lower body. So go ahead for today's practice, grab a tennis ball or any ball that you can roll around on, and also a blanket. So let's go ahead and get started on our back with our big muscle group on the back of the pelvis, the glutes. So I'm just going to start with soles of the feet on the ground for now. And let's remember that our glutes, they start at the top rim of the pelvis. So from the ASIS on the front, that's where the frontal hip bone is, all the way around to the back where the PSIS is, the back dimples. Imagine that that muscle just starts as a big sheet and it goes all the way down and it flows down the buttocks. So let's start to roll out the top of that muscle. So it's like we're gonna get it almost onto like the bony part of the pelvis, pretty high up. It's not gonna feel like it's on like the big meaty flesh part of the muscle. But it doesn't really matter like where you pick to start, from the outside or from the inside. I'm gonna start from the spine and I'm gonna get it right off the side of the spine, so I'm not actually on it. And I'm just gonna start to roll around a little bit. And as I start to roll around, like the other side of the pelvis actually lifts up off the floor, just to give me a little bit more control and a little bit more ability to really get some weight and some gravity when I need it over here. So I'm just gonna start to roll that out. And then with the hands close by, we can just go ahead and start to kind of move the ball a little bit, like wherever it hasn't touched yet, on that upper part of the pelvis. Moving around. I even like to kind of open my knee on that side. That really adds a lot of weight, some craziness there. And then when you feel like you've pretty much rolled around on like the whole attachment on the upper side of the glute area, let's go ahead and take the ball now more to the meatier part of the glute. So just place it somewhere where there's a big chunk of flesh that you can sink into. And again, we'll just kind of roll around on it. And the hands close by, so you can always readjust to a different area as you start to feel a little bit more completed. And get around to all the areas of the glutes. And now we'll take the ball just to one of the fleshy spots on the glute. I know there's a bunch, but one of the fleshy spots on the glute. The hand's right here close by to hold it. Now my pelvis is a little bit lifted off the ground on the other side, but my foot is right here to support it, so I don't feel like I'm doing too much effort. And now what I can do is I can draw my left leg into my body, give it a little bit more pressure there. See how that changes it. And then as we stretch the left leg straight forward to the ground, we can start to squeeze and contract that glute muscle on top of the ball. So that's why that right side of the pelvis needs to be kind of lifted, because both sides of the glutes will probably contract. But we will just want to contract as much as possible on top of the ball. Keep it, hold it, and then relax into the ball. And let's do that again. Draw the knee in, stretch the knee forward, squeeze, contract the butt muscles, and relax into the ball. One more time with the ball right here, knee in, legs straight, squeeze, contract your glutes, and relax. Roll the ball to a different spot of the glute, and let's keep doing. Knee into the chest, legs straight in front, squeeze, contract, and relax. So now you kind of got it, right? Knee in, leg forward, Squeeze, contract, let it go. Do this for a couple more areas of the glute. Just finding areas that we haven't really gotten that deep into yet. And then as you're ready, bring that left foot back. Pick your hips up, remove the ball. Stretch your legs out as if you were standing on the ground. So there is a little bit of activity, a little bit of tension through the legs. The feet are flexed. Your pelvis feels like it's there. And now we're just gonna squeeze and contract the glutes together a couple of times and just see and notice the difference. I feel a huge difference here. And then stepping the soles of the feet close to the pelvis. Let's grab the ball, go to the other side. We're gonna start working out the top of the glute area first. So I'm gonna try to find where it starts kind of at the top of the pelvis. And so it's not super meaty here, but it's not super bony either. So I'm just trying to find kind of like, where does it still feel a little bit fleshy? Rolling around. And remember, we can always like tip over to that side because the different weight will load the ball more, the tissues into the ball. And just trying to get like the whole attachment part of the glute muscles. And then we can take the ball, move it just to the big, centery, fleshy part of that glute. And again, rolling around. So the first part is just to sort of roll out the whole muscle. That's what the whole area back there. That's why we got our hands, so we can continuously just readjust the ball. And we could spend a lot longer doing this as well if this feels really good. But just for the sake of getting sort of a full lower body practice in today, let's take the ball just to one really nice, fleshy, good part of the bottom. Let's draw the right leg into the body. Ooh, you can feel how that changes it. And then stretch the leg out. And as it's stretched, contract the glute into the ball. Contract, contract, and then release. And again, draw the knee in. Stretch the leg forward. Contract, release. One more time with the ball in this spot. Right knee in. Right leg forward. Contract, let it go. Moving the ball, a couple of other places. We can just kind of go on our own here. So really when the knee draws in, really kind of accept those sensations. It's okay as you stretch out and squeeze and let go. Doesn't this feel good with all the hip work we've been doing recently? Keep moving the ball around. Let's do a couple of other spots on this side. Ooh. And then when this side feels about equal to that of the other, go ahead, remove the ball. Let's take the legs straight. Again, feel. So as if you were standing on the floor, a little bit of activity, tension through the legs. And then again, squeeze the buttocks and release. And squeeze the buttocks and release. Now see if you can alternate. Can you squeeze the right only, then release? Squeeze the left only, and release. And keep going kind of back and forth, trying to build that coordination in your brain. If this is really difficult, then we just need more practice. So we need to practice firing those neurons together. There's that like saying, neurons that fire together, wire together, right? And so it's okay if things are a little bit clumsy, a little bit uncoordinated. I think we sort of sometimes get overly frustrated at that time in the learning process when really the better response would just be like, okay, cool. I don't currently know how to do this, but I know that it's possible. So I'm just gonna keep going. Alrighty. So hopefully your butt feels really good. Mine feels great. Let's go ahead and come all the way on up to a tabletop position. And we'll work towards the other end of that chain. So from the butt now all the way down to the feet and to the ankles. So from a tabletop position, quadruped, we just want to try to find a nice base here. We haven't done so much with the arms and shoulders. Oh, but we will. And then let's take the right leg back. I'm going to actually start with the top of the foot down here. And then I'm going to push back and roll onto the toes and roll forward onto the top of the foot and push back to the toes. And roll forward to the top of the foot and push back to the toes. And now I'll start going in some full circles. So now rolling out the ankle back here. And if you get to any sticky spot, you can always pause. Going in both directions as well. And then bringing that right leg back underneath the body, stretching the left leg long. I'm going to do top of the foot down first, just so I can get that length. And then I'm going to push myself back to the toes and roll forward to the top of the foot and push back to the toes and roll forward and back and forward and back. And now circling around. Going in both directions. And then bringing that underneath the body, come on down to a seated position. Any seated position will do, even if you wanted to perch yourself up into a chair. We're gonna get to the point where we can work a little bit with this right foot. So can I kind of hook myself underneath with my right arm? My left foot is just somewhere for support. So the first thing I'm gonna do is hold on to the shin. I'm gonna use my arms to kind of hold on to each other. I'm gonna hold on to the shin so that I can just isolate movement of my ankle here as I start to roll. And so not that moving the shin and the ankle together is a bad thing, but for the purposes of building range of motion and controllable range, we really want to understand the origin of the movement. And here we're just looking for the ankle. So go ahead and change the direction of that. And now I'm going to move that left hand instead of on the shin so I can feel it. That's my input. I'm going to move it up to the knee. And from the knee here, I'm going to see if I can now just rotate my tibia, my shin bone, in the knee socket. So it needs to be bent for that. And it's sort of like I'm windshield wipering here, but I'm not trying to create the action from my ankle. I'm really trying to create it from the tibia itself. So if you're having a hard time feeling that, like, look what I'm doing here. This is giving me lots of input. Like, where's my movement coming from? Good. Now releasing that side down to the ground. We can go ahead and take the other side. So I'm gonna hook under there. I'm gonna use my right arm on my shin for a little bit of input as I start to roll out through the ankle. So I'm just restoring rotational capacity to my ankle and to my knee. The knee has rotational capacity. The question is whether or not we're using it. And when we're talking about all of our weight bearing, we talk about knee tracking over the second toe, totally perfect. But because that rotational capacity is there for the knee, we need to be able to train it and use it. So go ahead and roll the other direction if you haven't already. And now moving the hand maybe up to the knee so that we're not moving the thigh bone, and then tibial rotation in the knee. And this is definitely a newer movement for me as a yoga person. Like, when's the last time you rotated your knee joint? Never. So I'm gonna actually use my hand for more feedback here on the tibia itself to see if I can feel like, okay, where is this movement coming from? Good. So then after this, let's go ahead and roll out our calves a little bit. So this is called a calf smash. This is what the blanket will be for. So in this one, we're gonna be sitting back on the knees. So grab your blanket, and it can be any blanket, but have it be folded and then have there be a little bit of a roll there. I'm gonna suggest maybe like, I don't know, like a 4 or 5 inch roll. And to roll out the calf muscles, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go forward and we're gonna snuggle that roll as deep into the knee crease as we can get it. As deep into the knee crease as we can get it. And now we're gonna load the pose. We're gonna load the pose by sitting back. So you can always keep a little bit less load. You can always deload by coming forward. Or as you begin to sit back, you'll now start to feel why we call this the calf smash. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. I can feel the calf muscles trying to contract because this is a very intense position for them to be in. They're not here very often. So I know I'm gonna deload mine just by leaning forward a little bit. So we know how the nervous system controls the muscles, that there's continuous communication there between receptors in the belly of the muscles and the tendons and the nervous system, and they communicate with each other to say contract or relax, contract or relax. And they're getting this information based on what they perceive to be different threat levels. So change in tension can be a threat level, and so that's when you start to feel really tight in a muscle. Now, what can help us there neurologically is that if we spend more time here, those receptors start to see like, oh, hey, that wasn't a real threat. We just thought it was a threat. And they decrease their firing. And then the muscle starts to relax a little bit more. And that happens about like 30 to 60 seconds in. So can you feel that now, how your calf has gotten just a little bit more warm, a little bit more easy to this movement? See, reloading my pose for me now feels great. Now we can lean forward. We can snuggle our blanket back a couple of inches. So now I'm more on like the bigger, meatier part of the calf. And again, we can load up the movement. And of course, we always want to pay attention to how we set our legs, right? So outer hip, outer knee, outer foot. How are the tops of my feet on the ground here? Are my ankles overly weighted to the inside, the outside? Is that true for my knee? So the more that I can be really intentional with how I place and position my joints, the better this will feel. Okay, One more area on the calf. Let's move it down. And so now it's a little bit above the Achilles tendon. I'm not gonna look to roll out the tendon here, just sort of the meaty belly part of the muscle. For me, it was like the top of the calf was the most sensational. As I'm starting to move down the calf, just for me, it's feeling much, much more manageable. Just another couple moments here. And so the next place we'll go over to the wall or to really an ottoman or anything like that. Anything that you can get your legs up higher than your torso. So go ahead and lean forward there. We can remove the blanket. If you like your blanket for like a pillow or something like that, I'll just take it over there with me. But let's go ahead and get ourselves set up for legs up the wall or legs up the ottoman or legs up the couch, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you are a bit tighter in the backs of your legs, your butt is going to want to be farther away from the wall to decrease the angle or increase the angle actually. And then all the way up to the wall is pretty much if you know that you have the space for your hips to flex 90 degrees, right? So this is 90 degrees of hip flexion here. Just taking the legs up towards straight as it can be. Oh, my blanket's way too far away. Okay. So here we are. Very important for the legs to have time to tilt upside down. So very powerful for the lymphatic system, which relies on gravity and muscle contraction in order to move lymph, which is our drainage system. So just letting the legs kind of tilt upside down here. They might start to tingle in a moment, or I always kind of feel like they're like rain sticks that I just tilt upside down and then they all go down to the bottom. And so here, even if you wanted to, you could sort of point your toes and flex your feet, sort of trying to scrub the wall. And then at some point, if you feel like resting, you can rest, you can close your eyes. You can even take a nice, full, big breath in through your nose, all the way down to your hips. And at the very top, when you're ready to release, breathe out through the mouth. Breathing like that 2 more times. So I invite you to stay here for a few more minutes to let the body continue absorbing this nice upside down effect. And of course, if you have any other stretches that you want to be taking after this, now would be like just the perfect time to do that. So before I wrap up and let you get back to your day, I do want to remind you that you can move closer to us online by joining us on Patreon. That's where we have a ton of movement resources for you, all broken up by different categories, like for your feet, for your ankles, your knees, your hips. It's all free. and it's all super easily digestible. Like, I'm not that person who just gets into science details and just nerds out on that. I like things to be super digestible, understandable. I like them to make sense. And so I've compiled all of that together for you if that is something you're interested in. So if you want to join us on Patreon, I'll just put a link down in the description and you'll be good to go. As soon as you sign up, you'll have access to all of our resources. So thank you so much for joining in today's practice. I hope your lower body feels amazing, and I'll see you back here next week.